Is the whole universe against you? Is everything designed to turn you into a pebble that someone kicks? Lightning strikes, you burst into flames. Waters come and you drown. You are nothing but flotsam and jetsam in a gigantic machine who's designed to crush you? No, because you're here on God Search. I'm Michael Shevack. This is podcast 23, and we are going to experience God. So, we're going to continue here our discussion on this amazing thing that religions call covenant. It is the foundation of Judaism, it is the foundation of Christianity, it is the foundation of Islam, it is the foundation of the entire world, global culture, whether it is atheist or secular. They all of them follow the basic prophetic historical idea that life is not chaotic. Life is continuously in motion, continuously growing, continuously flowing. Those were the two things that we talked about last time that are the essential components to the spirituality that is the core foundation of covenant. Growth, which we talked about way back in podcast number 2, is that you have to grow. The entirety of all existence is ordered for progress, for growth, for what people call evolution. We'll talk about that more in the future. That we grow. If we grow willingly, if we grow positively, if we embrace growth, embrace transition, embrace improvement, you will find that our life is nicer. It's more fun. It's easier. We will tend to, there are always exceptions, but we will tend to suffer less. However, if we don't embrace growth, if we don't live in harmony with the way this world is designed, which grows, well, then we are swimming upstream and we're not salmon and we're going to suffer more. We won't have as much fun and we won't accomplish more. It will be harder. That's because there is a design here to how life works for good, how life works for the purpose of creating good or the experience called God. And then we talked a lot about growth. But then we said that once you're growing, you have to accept the fact that somehow you're living in a world where you have a sense of time. I'm not debating what time is, but you have to trust that life flows. You have to go from what one so-called moment to the next so-called moment, one perceived, life entity, a time frame, and to the next time frame. And they have to somehow experience a linkage in your own mind. And you have to experience the growth and then the flow. We put growth first so that the flow has a purpose. And you aren't flotsam and jetsam. You're not just blowing in the breeze. You're not just being rained on. You're growing intentionally. And then when you experience the flow, it becomes transformed into the spiritual foundation behind covenant. Remember, the word covenant in the Latin that they oftentimes use is alliance. And alliance, you are becoming one with the disparate forces in creation. You are becoming one with all the multiplicity of facets and actions and angles and aspects that are part of everyday life. And you are learning how to harmonize and align with them. That alignment, that personal experience of alignment, where get the green lights, you get the green lights and the parking spots. That alignment is the spiritual foundation behind this very ancient idea of covenant. Covenant. Now, once you're learning how to grow and you're learning how to flow, well, the next thing is really simple. And it's really delightful because it happens to rhyme. You grow You flow with the grow. So you grow and flow, and then you just go. Just go. And that going means that you are not just trusting the flow as a part of things. You're not just hating the flow like a caged natural animal where you're afraid of the wind and afraid of the rain. You're not just doing that. You become, in your own way, a master of your own flow within the larger flow, and you go with that. You go with it with a certainty and a confidence, which comes from the Latin confidere, which means with faith. You learn to trust, actively trust that there is a force, a power, a God, a universe, a deity, whatever you want to call it, that has an intelligence to it, that supports you, like a mother supports a baby, like these days a father supports a baby, or like, yeah, as to use a biblical expression, on eagle's wings, like an eagle supports little baby eagles. You get a sense that there is an intelligence that is loving, that is beautiful and loving, and that is behind you and stands by you and with you, and that you, as St. Paul said, Paul of Tarsus, who had his conversion on the Damascus Road and led to Christianity, that in which we move and have our being. And you just go with it. You go with it and you trust it. And within that going and then within that trusting, you begin to have a different kind of spiritual experience, not just kind of your ordinary, hey, I'm flowing with it. It's just we're flowing. It's like a little bit of, the old time marijuana kind of consciousness where you're mellow and flowing. What you are doing is you are an active, intelligent being within a larger, active, intelligent being. You begin to have an experience of yourself as an ego within a larger self. And out of this emerges the experience in a very religious way called God. Now, at the very beginning of podcast or one or two or three, we talked about the fact that people these days don't want to use the R word for religion, but they'll say they're spiritual. And you'll hear that everywhere. But the fact is, the problem is that religions, when they are not founded on correct spirituality, become derailed. Spirituality, though, as we'll talk about later in this podcast, has to get a little bit more precise, a little bit more exacting. And believe it or not, there are some very important have-tos, which we'll talk about. But the important thing is the covenant, which has been for so many centuries used to make people feel guilty, to control them, to be a government that violates their consciousness, that turns them into group egos to serve larger egos, whether they're individual tyrants or group tyrants. Covenant is always derailed and misused when it doesn't have a correct spiritual foundation, where you grow and you flow and you can simply go with it. That's the great gift of democracy. That's the great gift of, I think, the United States of America, which allows the individual to have a direct relationship for life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, meaning just go with it, a direct relationship with their God, or whatever they want to call it, the mystery, which is life. That's their inheritance from the enlightened philosophies. So you grow, you flow, and you go with it. And when you do that, you begin to notice that life is not just this thing. It is interacting with you. As you change, it changes. I know people who had tremendous fears of flying. And what they did was purchase a lot of plane tickets and get on the plane 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 until that fear imploded. And at the very end of it, what happened was something very strange happened. God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, sent them a coupon. And they won, like on some kind of sweepstakes, a plane ticket somewhere. It was as if for breaking through their fears and phobias of flying, it was as if God sent them a reward. That's a real deep religious experience. There are comparable experiences in the Bible for those people who have gotten past their fears. The story of Abraham and Sarah is very instructive. The story of Jacob becoming Israel is very instructive about going past your deepest fears and receiving rewards, so-called rewards, which are really the unblocking of your own desires so that you and life can have an interaction that's mutual. And you can discover that your individuality and the reality around you, your individuality and the reality around you are a team. That's the experience of being made in the image and likeness of God. And the awareness of that with certain particular things that we're going to go into is the foundation and the experience of covenant, that there is a mutuality between the human life and life and the experience of life. Our life and life are linked. Think about it. Life can't support itself without supporting you because you're part of life. You must support life because if you don't, and let's say you undermine the food supplies on the planet, you're not going to be supported. So it makes perfectly logical sense that life can't interact in a way that undermines itself, and that somehow we must be able to have a covenantal alignment with how life works for good. How does life work in order to produce good? So, and that is the foundation to covenant. That is it. It's very simple. Now, in that process, we begin to have childlike insights. All right. It's a normal part of everyday life. For instance, if I'm a child and I take my finger and I place it in a flame, it's going to burn. And my parents can be yelling, don't put your finger in the flame, you're going to burn. Don't put your finger in the flame. And that can take place. But you're an ego, you're an individual person. And even if you're a child like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, you could be told no, but you do it anyway. And you put your finger in the flame. And lo and behold, you realize that your parents had knowledge and they transmitted it to you through their words. Indeed, it may have been written in a book they read or a scripture that says, thou shalt not put thy hand into a flame, thou wilt feel the heat of my wrath. You know, if they decide to describe it in personification terms, it will be put as God is telling you that the flame will be the heat of my wrath and you shouldn't put your finger in. That's a living, breathing spiritual experience that is described in a way that sounds religious. You see, this artificial mind crack, it's a mind crack, between spirituality and religion is a lie. When religion is not correctly founded on spirituality, it becomes disjunct from the living experience of life. It becomes a bunch of rules and regulations, and there is no order to it except the order that is imposed by books and clergy and tradition upon individuals based on some kind of authority or some kind of title. Okay? But when you have a true spiritual foundation to covenantal life, religion spontaneously begins to reorganize. re-emerge, re-emerge. Okay? Now, an example of that is our experience with COVID, where we discover in the midst of an attempt to re-galvanize the machinery of economics, we get this shocking, absolutely shocking lesson from nature that the single most important thing in an economic system is healthy workers. Well, life is teaching us something about how life works. Another way to say that is God is teaching us something about how God commanded life to work. Another way to say that is nature is teaching us how it is ordered to work. The word order is an impersonal thing. We use it in science all the time. The word commandment makes it seem like God is voicing it and bringing it into existence, but they're saying the same thing. The fact is, we do not live in a vacuum. There are rules and regulations and ways things work here. Don't put your finger in the flame. You will get hurt. Now, don't think for a second that every fear you have is neurotic and you have to buy a lot of plane tickets to get past it. We are built in our bodies with built-in fears. Okay, we have a fear of not eating. We have a fear as babies of not being supported. We will go crazy when we're not supported on our bottoms. Okay, it is built in because one of the laws of life is to protect us because we are part of life, and life has to protect us because we are part of it. That's why your finger is designed or evolved or ordered, pick your word, to pull away the minute it senses the pain so that it doesn't get damaged. The unpleasant and miserable feeling of pain is good, is good. As you grow and you flow, and then you go and you begin to trust life, you become aware that a lot of the so-called negative experiences you are having are there to simply make you aware in an often unpleasant and painful way that you have crossed a boundary and a border and you have done something that does not work harmoniously with the way life is designed for good, or that interferes with your experience called God. You will begin to discover it. And when you begin to discover that what is negative is really positive, and what is positive is also positive. So what is negative is positive, and what is positive is positive, and the negative is there to help the positive be more positive. And the positive is there, which reveals the negative for the purpose of improving you and making it more positive. You lose your mind crack. You lose it. You cannot maintain this ridiculous separation between spirituality and religion. Or another version of it is a ridiculous separation between spirituality and any kind of government, whether it's religious or secular, atheist or non-atheist. You cannot separate these things into completely different camps. They are both aspects of the singular phenomenon that we have called life. Life. We grow, we flow, we go, and we begin to discover that there is an incredible intelligence indeed, a love, perfectly great word that surrounds us and nurtures us and supports us. And we no longer see ourselves as wounded animals that are lost in the universe, flotsam and jetsam, rained on by God, peed on by God, hit by lightning, just subject to the whims and vicissitudes of every force in nature. No, we are not merely natural creatures. We are supernatural creatures. And as you develop your God search even more, you will discover that you are not merely supernatural. You are also can gain access to a meta-natural where the organizational structure of how the universe is created becomes aware, okay, becomes aware of you, and you become aware of it. And you learn about how existence was even before you could have possibly existed. And then you become aware that you can actually touch upon the very transnatural, the consciousness of what people call God. And again, I'm putting the word God in quote. It is a most dangerous word. We began that at the very beginning. Now, so you grow and you flow and you go, and then as you see how life works, you grow, flow, go, and know. You have a deep, intrinsic, tight bond with life. You align with life. Your disalignments are there to get you to learn to consciously realign. And you know life as you know yourself. And as you know yourself, you know life. You know, you gain knowledge. It's deep, it's intimate. It is not happenstance that is the word in Hebrew in the Bible that is used for sex. It's not just a horizontal mambo. It is a deep, intrinsic sharing of knowingness, of a universe that knows another aspect of the universe as itself, as life, knowing life as itself within a larger self, with a self knowing another self as a larger self, as a being knowing another being as part of a larger being. It is knowingness. Out of the growing and the flowing and the going comes a knowing. And out of that emerges a major transformation in the experience of covenant. It begins with, as I said, correct spirituality, living spirituality. Living spirituality begins when we put grow before flow. We are aware that we have to grow, and we seize that, and we allow ourselves to do that, and we trust the flow, knowing we must grow. If we put flow before grow, well, then we're not going to act like conscious human beings. We're going to act like animals. And whatever happens, the flotsam and jetsam, and whoever bunny rabbit gets eaten by the wolf, that's what's just going to happen. And we're going to be part of nature alone, but we're not going to be supernatural. We're not going to have the power and dominion over nature at the same time as we are part of nature. That knowingness promotes covenant into a new level from the spiritual to what is commonly called morality. It's a terrible word, too. It is tinged with all sorts of have-tos, all sorts of guilt, all sorts of rules and regulations. Nonetheless, as you begin to discover the intelligence and emotional support and the loving embrace of life for your life, and you see that there is an order here, and you throw yourself into the order knowing it is like your parent. It is like a father who punishes a son, or a mother who punishes a son to make them better. These are the religious analogies for the spiritual phenomenon. When you begin to discover this, it is unavoidable, whether you like it or not. You have to face the religious dimension, which is moral, not just what you can do, but what you should do. Everyone can steal. Squirrels steal nuts. But should we steal? Can we have a growing economy which shares, and shares beautifully and evenly, and embraces people if we steal? You see, out of a correct spiritual experience emerges the moral experience, which is the knowingness, the have-tos, the shoulds, you'd better, don't, don't steal, don't commit adultery, all those things that everyone blew off in great freedom. And I'm not faulting the freedom. God bless the freedom of the Enlightenment. God bless the freedom that people in America have, where they can have a direct, living, creative relationship with rights, quote unquote, directly to the creator or whatever you want to call it. Because by that experience of being let out of a cage of bad religion and bad government, we could rediscover the true foundation of human behavior, the true foundation of life, and rediscover the true, exciting, reality-based, amazing adventure, which is covenant. Covenant. So, start with your grow and your flow, not the flow before the grow, then go, and then have your life experiences and begin to see and learn how life works for good. That is the experience called God. It is covenantal, not just spiritual, because it has a component which is very, very fascinating. It goes beyond them all. And we're going to talk about that next time. We're going to talk more in depth about morality, because it's a very, very complex problem when you give people freedoms like we have. And then we're going to bridge into the most amazing of human inventions. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. So anyway, go to yourgodsearch.com, strike up a conversation, ask me whatever you want. A lot of people have done so already. I will give you answers to everything. I'll take on the whole world. If the whole world wants my answers, I'm more than happy to share myself. Go to yourgodsearch.com and have a relationship with me. Hey, it's part of life, having a relationship with life. It's part of the covenantal experience. I'm there. And start now. If you feel like life is against you, dare in faith to believe the opposite. Dare to believe that this world is good and that your individuality is not a mistake, or it's nothing that anyone has the right to crush, nothing that even you have the right to hold back. We talked about that. Expressing your full potential is a value priority. It is a magnificent world that is designed to educate you in how to have that experience we call God. So thanks for being here yet again on another God Search. This is podcast 23. I am Michael Shevack. Uncover God, discover God, and for heaven's sakes, if you've been given a bad religion, recover God. Stop living in fear of something which is the most beautiful and amazing human inheritance. Well, it's not even an inheritance. It's the human gift that makes us human, our ability to experience and to have the experience called God. See you next week, same time. I think it's about 5:45 every single Wednesday, AM Eastern Time. Michael Shevack, bye-bye. Thank you for being here.